And this is Ken Kraetzer for Sons of the American Legion Radio. Tonight we have our Sons of the American Legion Radio Army football sports huddle, and we're going to talk about Army's win on Saturday, 15-0 over Navy, and the upcoming game this Saturday at Michie Stadium against the Air Force Academy. Winner of that game takes the Commander-in-Chief trophy. Now, let's see, going around the room, we've got Richard Miller from our Sons of the American Legion team. How are you, Richard?
Very good, Ken. How are you?
Good, good. We've got Conrad Crane from the Carlisle Barracks area, Pennsylvania. How are you?
Yeah, feeling really good after Saturday.
Okay. From the Philadelphia area, we've got West Point alumnus Steve Chaloult.
How's it going, Ken? What a day, what a day.
Absolutely. It was a day for the ages, historic, and it was something special. Jack McGuirk from Pelham from our Sons of the American Legion radio team.
How you doing?
He's got the right jersey on. He got the 25. And from Cornwall, New York, we've got Greg Mogavero, another graduate of the U.S. Military Academy, another former Army football player. How are you, Greg?
Can be better. Great day. Great game.
Yes.
Okay. And calling in from the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville, Alabama, from the class of 87, Sam Houston. Sam, how are you?
It's day 3 of that Beat Navy feeling, which lasts all year long.
Well, it does. It does. Army lost Navy last year, but now has won 4 out of the last 5 years. And why don't we just go around the room with some general impressions of Saturday's amazing victory. I'm going to just start by saying, I thought it was amazing to see the midshipmen up at West Point. I was walking to the Foley Center to check in, and all of the mids were getting off the buses at the top of the hill, walking down past the stadium, and they were staging in the Foley Center and then in the basketball arena, the Hollander Center. And I just thought it was neat to see. I know it's a little bit of a cultural rivalry, but I thought that was a neat opportunity for the midshipmen to see West Point on that day. Okay, Richard, what was your thought of Saturday?
I thought of Saturday, good win for Army on defense. It's the first time since 1943 the Army Navy game was played at Michie Stadium. It was a shutout for the Army team. I thought Army did a great job of really shutting down Navy and just having only 42 plays on offense. They rushed for 108 yards on 35 attempts. Really more relying on the running game, which was a big help.
Okay. Very good. Now let's move on. Let's go on to Conrad. Conrad, what'd you think?
My man Zach Harding came through. I expected a big game from him, and I thought Army had a great game plan. They played conservative, and they used their strengths. And again, each team had 2 big opportunities, and Navy squandered theirs, and Army took advantage of theirs. I'm really interested in Steve and Greg's comments about the line play, because Army, both defensive lines really seemed to dominate the game pretty well. And both teams averaged less than 3 yards a carry on offense. I mean, it was not a real great show of option football, but it's a great win. And the Army defense played terrific. They're in all kinds of national categories now. I mean, it was a great win. I mean, any win over Navy is a good one, but shutting them out really felt good.
Yeah, I think to your point, I don't know if it was option football to me, run the quarterback left, run the quarterback right.
Yeah.
Tyree Tyler ran 26 of Army's 53 plays plus 1 play he threw the ball. And they really struggled getting the fullbacks going. And with the ball so wet, they really played conservatively about getting the ball out to the slot backs. Let's go to in Philadelphia area, Steve Chaloult. Steve, what was your impression? What was the difference maker in this game?
Well, I think one of the difference makers, and I won't take too much of our defensive line observations. I'll leave that to Greg. That's his forte. But man, our nose guards did not give up an inch. They were in that center's face, and the option attack happens up the middle, center, quarterback, fullback. And if you neutralize that, you're going to have a long day. If you are consistent with the center, quarterback, fullback, you're going to have a great day. We were just a little bit better than they were on it. Not much, but we were a little bit better on it, and they locked it. They locked it down. Our nose guards played a phenomenal game at the point of attack. One of the things that I think we won the most of, we won the game. Yeah, that was phenomenal. I had the honor of being able to watch that in person. I was there. One of the things that we did do that you probably won't even think about is we won the day. If you look at the coverage from college football coverage from ESPN right from the beginning with the Apache helicopters and the way that we highlighted Army, it was a 8-hour commercial about Army football and the military academy, and that will pay dividends when it comes time for us to recruit in the future. From my inside sources, they told us that Navy just said, you guys just take care of it. And that was a mistake on their part because we took care of it all right, and it came out in spades.
In terms of the whole publicity for the day, I mean, it was extraordinary. ESPN was on for 3 hours from about 9 to 12, and then CBS Sports Network went on for 3 hours. And then the big CBS went on for the full game coverage, about 3.5 hours. It was an extensive amount of coverage for West Point. I have to say, when I got there about 9:30 is when the helicopters flew in, and they did a flyby for ESPN. And when the Blue Angels flew over the stadium, when Navy came out on the field, you could not see them. You could hear them, but you couldn't see them because of the fog. And they had flown all the way up from Pensacola, Florida, for that occasion. Okay, next up is Jack McGurk. What do you think?
It was an excellent game. We were talking about what the score is going to be. Could it be a low-scoring game or blowout? It ended up being a shutout. First time Army shut out Navy since 1969. The defense was outstanding. Rich mentioned that the Navy offense only had 42 plays of offense. They also only had 4 first downs in the entire game. And as I mentioned, the Army defense, Amadeo West, Eric Smith, 9 tackles apiece. West and Markel Broughton coming up with that huge goal line stand. Xavier Arline, who was a Navy quarterback. Actually, this is the 5th freshman quarterback to get the start for Navy in the Army-Navy game. And he had that big 52-yard run, but he was tripped up before reaching the goal line. I think that was Cedric Cunningham who came up with that tackle.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And then they had that goal line stand, kept trying to get the ball in, but the Army defense stopped him. And Coach Niamatololo decided to go for it on 4th down rather than kick the field goal to tie it. And they handed the ball to Nelson Smith, and it was stopped. Amadeo West, Markel Broughton stopped him. That was a big play there. And then later in the game, we saw a safety on Navy tried this weird, I guess it was like an end around passing play or something, maybe out of Coach Niamatololo's bag of tricks. And Darian McDonald came up with a tackle in the end zone for the safety. So a great game for the Army defense. Navy continues to struggle. Navy actually, with this game now, has a 5-game losing streak, and I guess this is the end of the season for them. And Army has a 7-0 at home, 9-game winning streak at home. So just a huge day for the Black Knights.
Yeah, we want to add one more to that total. Okay, Greg Mogavero, former defensive lineman for the Black Knights. So tell us a little bit about the defense for Army. That great goal line stand and the
geez. I mean, well, one of the things we opened with last week, we talked about what we were looking forward most to, and that's just for me, it was intensity. And man, they did not disappoint in that regard. The goal line stands. I mean, talk about a game of inches. I mean, that whole game was about not quitting, and it was just just heartwarming to watch as a defensive lineman. I mean, some of the keys that one of the points that Chaloult brought up as far as the coverage for the day being the Army day, Ken Niamatololo actually during the college game day coverage, actually during his interview was getting mad and talking about how it was it's not just Army coverage day. He said Coach Monken isn't the only competitor here. We need to see more coverage about Navy, but they got smoked on the coverage side. So that was really awesome. So that's kind of my other thing that I'm pretty proud about. But watching the game, watching the intensity that I saw out there, I think for me, the big things is, number one, I saw that the D line was actually able to stay below the pads of the O line. I really felt that was a huge part of what we did on the line, to really kind of, we didn't get in the backfield right away as much as I was hoping we would. But the second thing was that I think normally I don't even pay that much attention to, but the corners, the defensive backs, were really wrapping up. I mean, they were attacking, and they were wrapping up. There was less missed tackles. Let's put it that way. So I just felt that their execution, their intensity, and fundamentals, up front. I mean, so it wasn't like, it wasn't really a blowout, and then for the first part of that game, I mean, it was kind of a nail biter. So it was, I think Steve hit it last time we talked about, in the trenches was where this thing was going to be won. And I think that was true. But I think that execution and good fundamental tackling, in the backfield was key as well. So, no, my hat's off to him. I mean, no quit, freaking, held on down to fourth down, goal line stand, game of inches, and every call was legit. I mean, that was one of the best Army Navy games I think I've ever seen.
Okay. Now we got to get to Sam Houston. What was the difference in the game for you, and what was the atmosphere like for your group down in Huntsville watching the game?
It was electric. The Huntsville West Point Society was on fire, and you've got people here in Huntsville. It's a very large gathering of grads here, so you've got people who span decades of the long gray line, and so there's collective excitement about seeing a game like this. I know last week we were talking about our predictions, and one of the things that I said was I was hoping for a blowout. But I got to say, I'll take a shutout over a blowout any day of the week, because I've seen a lot of Army Navy games. I've played in a few, albeit on the sprint team, and I can tell you the intensity of seeing the defense absolutely dominate the Navy team is. I don't want to say it's a once in a lifetime thing to see what we saw this past Saturday. That's twice in my lifetime. And in 1969, when it last happened, I don't even know if I was even playing Army at the time as a little kid. So that was absolutely fabulous. One point to note is that our line's run, his 52-yard run at the beginning of the first half down to the 2-yard line, was the last first down that Navy got in the entire game. And that speaks volumes for how dominant Army's defense was for the remainder of the game. It was completely lights out. As far as game day coverage, I concur with everything that was said. I think two things. One of my favorite parts was ESPN Game Day came back from a commercial, and I looked up, and the Game Day guys were getting covered with water, and I said, "Oh, look, it started raining there at West Point." And then I realized, no, that's not what it is. There's an Apache helicopter hovering about 5 feet off Lusk Reservoir and is blowing water all over those guys. And that was pretty cool. And then I really hope that they were live streaming ESPN Game Day in the Army locker room, because Greg brought up Niamatololo's interview. And I tell you, the guy just can't help himself. He just belted out volumes of bulletin board material for the team just minutes before the game is starting. He's just belting out smack about last season. So my final thought on this game before we get into specifics is just this. I have said all season that last season for Navy was an asterisk. It was the Malcolm Perry year. I was pleased to see that the announcers of the game were finally admitting what a difference Malcolm Perry made to Navy's offense. Navy's offense without Malcolm Perry, if they had not had Malcolm Perry last year, they wouldn't have been 500. So that's my thoughts on the game. I loved it, loved every minute of it. beat Navy, and I can't wait to see Army bring that same intensity against Air Force on Saturday.
Okay. Thanks. Now let's go into a few specifics on the Army defense. They held Navy to, I think it's 117 total yards, 108 yards rushing. The great play by Cedric Cunningham to track down the Navy quarterback who was on a sprint towards the goal line flag, Xavier Arline, cut him down at the 2-yard line, enabling a goal line stand. Just the sheer effort, stopping the fullback 3 times and Arline once, and then getting a tackle for a safety. Just an extraordinary performance by Army. Anyone want to talk about the particulars and really what Nate Woody brought to the table as the coach, as the defensive coordinator in his first year?
I think that Woody, oh my gosh, that guy, I was a little, kind of hesitant to jump in on all the hype, when he first came. But I tell you what, from game number 1, his ability not only to make, second half adjustments, but to make adjustments during the game. He really, I think he's a master of offense, and I think that's why he's able to, make the adjustments he can with, because our guys a lot of times are outmatched when they play against Air Force. They're going to be giving up a lot of weight, but he knows how to he's coached these guys and he puts them in the right place, to make sure that, we're successful. So, he knows how to make the adjustments and get those guys in the right place at the right time. I am a huge believer in Woody, and I'm just so glad we got him on board.
We look at the tackles on the day. Eric Smith had 9 tackles, including one of the stops. I think it's a second down stop on Nelson Smith in the goal line stand. Amadeo West just get so many accolades from his teammates. He had 9 tackles. Darian McDonald filling in at the Apache position. Normally that's Malcolm Morrison. Had 5. John Radican had 4. And of course, that huge third play on the third down play when he just grabbed Xavier Arline and tackled him, pulled him back to the 1.5-yard line, and he never got the ball over the line. What'd you think about the defense, Sam?
I agree with everything Greg said. Nate Woody has got to be the best coordinator hire that Monken has had. We lamented when Jay Bateman left the team and went to North Carolina. And Bateman's effect on North Carolina has been obvious. Bateman was known for always taking during the week time to have the defense practice for Navy. And it had them ready collectively by the end of the season, ready to play Navy. But Bateman never produced a defense that accomplished what Nate Woody's defense did, and that is completely shut out the midshipmen, and not just shut them out. They really only threatened one time. And if you take away Arline's 2 runs to start the second half, Navy, I believe, rushed for about 50 yards total in the entire game. So, and another thing to point out about something that Nate Woody has accomplished this year is he's accomplished not 1, but 2 shutouts, because they also shut out Middle Tennessee State to start the game. So yes, the defense has really played great. They've carried the team in several games this year. They've allowed the team to get back into games. And in this game, what they did was they set the tone from start to finish. The hitting, the assignment football, controlling the line of scrimmage. They basically took away every single facet of Navy's game. Last week, we were talking about Nelson Smith, and I was complimenting Nelson Smith as being a hard runner. They held Nelson Smith, Navy's best runner, to 23 yards total, and they kept him out of the end zone on 3 runs. Because remember, he touched the ball 3 times during the goal line stand and got shut out every single time. So hats off to the defense, hats off to the players that make that team. One other thing that I wanted to say that goes along with something Steve said about the game day coverage. I noticed on Twitter today, they always talk about commits for Army recruiting. And I've seen, I think, at least 4 different commits to Army recruiting, each of them citing the Army victory this past Saturday as one of the decision makers for them to go ahead and say, yes, I want to be a part of the Brotherhood. So hats off to the defense. Can't wait to see that intensity against Air Force.
Okay. Conrad or Steve or Jack?
Look at the statistical stuff now for the Army defense. They're number one in the country in passing yardage per game, which no Army defense has ever been close in that. Part of that is because they played so many option teams, but they give up the least passing yardage of any team in the country. They're third in total defense and fourth in scoring defense. I mean, this is a national level defense. I mean, it really is. This is quite a group. And little things, they do the little things right. You mentioned the tackling, Radigan falling on the fumble. I mean, that's getting that. I'm sure we'll talk about that. That play is being contrast with Navy's play all over the place. But I mean, they do the little things right. And again, this is a national level defense. We haven't seen one of those here in a long time.
Well, they may get their challenge. Well, certainly Saturday is going to be a challenge, but when you look at who they may play in the Independence Bowl, when I looked at the standings, they're going to play the number 5 team in the Pac-12. And the teams that were tied for 4th and 5th were Oregon and UCLA.
Yep.
So they could be playing some pretty good passing, high-octane offensive teams in that game. But let's worry about Air Force first. I'll have some fun with whoever it is next week when we find out who the opponent's going to be. I think the one can, obviously, what are your thoughts about Tyree Tyler? He seems like he's cemented himself as the starting quarterback. Last few weeks, we've really gone into the games uncertain who was going to run out on the field starting. But he certainly has played well in the second half of the Georgia Southern game. And then this was a win for the ages. Tyler ran for, it was 110 yards. One loss, so it was a net 96. He had a beautiful 4-yard touchdown run. I wasn't quite sure. I think a case going in could have been made for Christian Anderson to start, or even Cade Ballard. But Coach sees a lot of speed and in Tyler, and he certainly proved the coach correct on Saturday. What did you guys think of Tyree Tyler, the Army quarterback?
I'll jump in on it. I think I'm still a little frustrated with our offense and where we are still to this day, and I don't want to be a downer coming out of this great win, but we're very 1.5 dimensional. I won't even say 2 dimensional. We're about 1.5 dimensional right now. We're fullback and quarterback power. And I'm still a little bit puzzled as to why we can't maybe tighten up the formations a little bit and get the halfbacks. We got the most talented running back we've ever had at this stage of their careers, sitting out there with Robinson, and we're not utilizing them as well as we could. So I'm sure sometime in March, April, I'll get the inside scoop of what's going on with it all. But right now I'm puzzled as to why we're not going to be able to, we haven't been able to open it up just a little bit more. And when we tried to get the ball outside, we put it on the turf, which is really negative reinforcement on our part. But it's going to be a different type of ball game this weekend. And I think if we're going to continue to rely upon, if you look at the way that Air Force handled Navy's offense, they handled them as well as we did. So, and Air Force offense is a whole lot more potent. So we've got to play a better game offensively and not just rely upon our defense, because we could get behind and not be able to come back. So I give them my full support, but we've got to figure out a way to get that ball outside and get it open things up a little bit.
Yeah. Anyone else have a thought about the Army offense?
I'll jump in real quick. The one concern that I saw, and remember last week we were talking about with option football, the Achilles heel is if you can get penetration on the O-line, right on the line. Because if you can get the defensive lineman in the backfield, even a yard, half a yard, it trips everything up. And a big part of that game, I saw some big guys, having their way in the backfield. And when I was rewatch the game, it seemed like we weren't able to stop the slants, quite as much. They were stemming, and then they would slant and come in at an angle. And it seemed like a lot of times, like our tackle was chasing, the defensive tackle that was kind of coming through. And so Air Force obviously is going to watch that game, and I think it's really important that we get our guys down, and we gotta make sure that D line doesn't get past that line of scrimmage. We just got to put them down.
Okay, Conrad?
Yeah, we just had a terrible game on first down. Almost every first down was like a 2-yard run, and we got to get a little more than that to be on schedule. We just couldn't. I mean, the fullbacks just had a terrible day. I think the longest run, I think Adkins had one 4-yard run. That was the longest run by a fullback all day. I understand about trying to get outside, but we need to do everything better. I mean, we need to get the fullback going better. We need to get the outside going better. I mean, it just, yeah, I don't know what it's going to take. I didn't realize how wet it was there. I guess maybe the fact that wet fog limited what we were going to do. That might have affected some of the things we did.
It was very, very damp, and I think that's what Coach Munkin talked about today in the press conference, about why he was so conservative with the offense. Trying to keep the ball as few moving parts as possible. I mean, Tyler ran it himself 26 of Army's 53 plays, and threw it one time.
I definitely agree. I think the running game has to do more work and get more speed, because with the way that the track was on the field, it wasn't working. It won't work in the next game against Air Force. That's what Army's gonna have to work on.
I don't think we're gonna have a wet field. I feel we're gonna have a snowy field on Saturday. It's gonna be a lot colder, and it's
gonna be frozen.
Yeah, about a foot of snow or more predicted between tomorrow and Thursday. Jack, any thoughts?
Yeah, there was one play in the game. I think all of us were holding our breath on this one, where Army was on offense. They tried to pitch the ball out, ended up fumbling it, and one of the Navy defenders tried to recover the ball. I guess it went right through his fingers. Had he been able to recover it, he might have picked it up and run it back for a touchdown. But the ball ended up rolling out of bounds, which is kind of a big sigh of relief for Army. But that was kind of a scary play there.
Now, what did Sam say by the grace of the football gods it went out of bounds?
After the game, Numalolo talked about that play and said that they train on scooping and scoring every day in practice. And I guess if I had an offense as inept as Navy's, I would try to get my defense to score too. But I'm sure that
those drills that every football team does on a regular basis, football fundamentals, ready to pick up and fall on a loose ball or tip it up in the air. So
contrast that with what Radigan did. When Navy fumbled, that ball was right next to the sideline, and Radigan, he was on that sucker like a mother protecting their child. I mean, he was not going to let that ball go out of bounds. He made sure we had it. I mean, different approach. And I'm sure there'll be training. Coaches will be using those clips on training, because the Navy guys, they just kind of kicked it out of bounds. It was really just, obviously they're all thinking, there were 3 of them there. They were all thinking touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, that was
pick it up. Or just
that was a key turning point in the game.
Yeah, now the Army seemed to get a couple of big breaks like that. Richard, you want to highlight a couple of the games from last week that you were following?
A couple of the games I was following from last week: Georgia, number 9, 49-14 over number 25 Missouri. Number 1 Alabama keeps their ranking 52-3 over Arkansas. East Carolina improves to 11-0 right now over Troy, 42-38. Colorado, number 21, loses to Utah 48-21. Colorado's first loss of the year. Number 22, Oklahoma, 42-3 over Baylor, which is now 2-7 on the season. Number 16, Iowa is now 6-2. Wisconsin is now 2-3, 28-7 win for Iowa. Number 17, North Carolina, 62-26 over number 10 Miami. North Carolina and Miami have the same number of wins on the season, 8. It was only Miami's second loss of the season. Number 6, LSU, their second loss of the season in a real close game, 37-34. LSU gets the victory. Number 15, USC, 43-28 over UCLA. USC is now 5-0 on the season. Number 18, BYU, improves to 10-1 on the season, 28-14 victory over San Diego State. Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Michigan, Ohio State, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Texas, Kansas, Purdue, Indiana, Cincinnati, and Tulsa all postponed or canceled. And as far as like, I think you told me to also follow the Pac-12 standings.
Yeah, what do you have for the Pac-12 standings? I had UCLA and Oregon at 3 and 2 as being 4th and 5th. Is that what you see?
Yeah, that's what I see right now. As you mean, yeah,
I wonder how they break the tie between the two. If the two schools have identical records, does the conference commissioner just pick who goes?
I mean, Oregon's playing a championship. Oregon has been moved into the championship game because the other team got virused out.
Oh, okay. Well, I could be seeing the UCLA Bruins down in Shreveport. We'll see. Okay, I want to just ask the group before we move on to talking about Air Force. What did you think about having the Army-Navy game at West Point? Of course, there were no fans in the stands. Parents couldn't attend, very unfortunately. But I thought it was something special about having the Corps cadets in the stands and having the brigade of midshipmen there. I thought it was a very special scene on Saturday. Do you think they should try and do this again? I know Kenny Amanalola wants a home and home playing this game down at Navy and Marine Corps Stadium in Annapolis.
Yeah, I say no.
It's America's game.
Once in 75 years.
There was a reason the game was at West Point, and the reason was simple. They couldn't have it in Philadelphia, which is the neutral site. And therefore, since Army was supposed to be the home team this year at the neutral site, the Department of Defense, they agreed that it would be played at West Point. And I think that it is, I don't think that it serves any purpose for Niumatalolo to suddenly start saying fair is fair, we should have a home-on-home series, because he knows the reasons that the game was switched to West Point as well. And it was not switched to West Point to favor Army. It was
Maryland wouldn't have allowed the brigade and the Corps to go either. Anyway, they couldn't have put both. There was no other venue they could have put both groups in there.
Yeah,
that's exactly right, Conrad. Because and the reason for viewers who are watching this who don't know what we're talking about, the Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium is not on the Naval Academy campus. It's actually in Annapolis, and so therefore it falls under the state of Maryland and the city of Annapolis jurisdiction, unlike Mikey Stadium, which is actually right smack dab in the middle of the West Point Army installation.
Yeah.
And so, that on top of the fact that Army was the designated home team this year made it only, made even more sense why the game was switched to West Point, where the crowds could be controlled and the Corps and the brigade could be allowed to attend.
Yeah. Steve or Greg?
Yeah, I will tell you that every opportunity that West Point had to make this as neutral a site as they could was taken. You had as much Navy paraphernalia all over the stadium as you did Army. The field was set up as it was a neutral site. For every one person that was lucky enough to be there to watch the Army game, a Navy counterpart was able to see the game from the Navy side. So it was as neutral as you were going to get in a non-neutral site. The only advantage we had, and I've seen it, is the locker room that we have on the visitor side. That is circa 1912, and that's the only other advantage we have other than of anything else. That is probably one of the worst locker rooms in all of college football, Division I through junior college.
Yeah, I got to tell you the story. We were on the press call with Ken Niumatalolo last week, and somebody asked him about if he thought playing in Michie Stadium would be difficult or a challenge. He said, the size of the field is all the same. They have white lines. I went on that tack. Nothing different. They would have their midshipmen in the stands, and I thought to myself, he hasn't seen the locker room. Yeah, I mean, you guys are going to replace that all in a couple of years. They want to tear down the whole East stands and put up a new modern grandstand with boxes. I'm sure a new locker room that would be more. I was waiting to see how Oklahoma was going to handle that locker room if they had been in this year.
Well, I will tell you just a little side note on the locker room on the East stands. When Coach first came on board, he walked through the current locker room and he asked if there was any type of locker SOP. And they said that they were, but nobody had followed it. So one day he just went downstairs with the equipment manager and he pointed to lockers that weren't just standard and he moved them all over to the East stands. So they had to dress and earn their way back. So any locker room that's a punishment by a really great football is a bad locker room.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not it's a throwback. Even I guess those stands were built in the 1960s or late 1950s. They built those East stands.
The Yale Bowl's the only one I've ever seen was worse. Greg probably remembers we played the Yale Bowl. That was tough.
Okay.
That was special.
Okay. Anything else? I thought it was kind of neat. I thought it was neat to see the midshipmen, and I thought it was kind of a throwback to when more games were on campus, and and leagues were places where you could drive to opponents' games instead of to away games, rather than always having to fly. Okay, we'll see what happens next year. It's going to be at the Meadowlands, not too far away. So Navy's going to have the long bus trip 2 years in a row. Okay, Now let's get down to Jack. Anything?
No, I was going to say it was pretty interesting, kind of unusual up at West Point seeing one of the end zones say Navy on it. I don't know if the midshipmen appreciated getting up at 2 o'clock to drive up to West Point on the buses. And actually,
I talked to the mids. We were in the side when the mids were all sitting, and they told us about getting up at 2 in the morning, and they had just finished exams. Some of the group we talked to looked pretty tired, actually. But and then they had to stand around, for a couple of hours waiting to go into the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them sat down on the field turf in the Foley Center.
Well, they did learn one lesson.
What's that?
They learned that the safest place to be socially distant was Navy's end zone.
Okay. Now let's get down to business on a very tough game for Army coming up on Saturday. It's a 3 o'clock start again on the CBS Sports Network. The Air Force Academy coming in. They've played less games than Army. They are coming in off a win off of Utah State. Take us through who'd like to start and analyzing the Air Force Falcons.
Well, big thing that jumps out at me with Air Force is they have Caden Remsburg back, their star running back. And he had a big game against Utah State with 107 yards rushing, touchdown in the game. He had missed a couple of games earlier in the season because of injury, but he's back, and he's probably the thing that the Army defense has to keep an eye on the most. Big priority.
Yeah. Just looking at my notes, Air Force is averaging 336 yards a game rushing, 6 rushing touchdowns. They have a sophomore running back, Brad Roberts, 378 yards, and 8 players who've run for 100 yards or more this year. And their quarterback, Hazig Daniels, has rushed for 236 yards, 24 of 40 throwing the ball. And, of course, they defeated Navy 40-7. They lost at San Jose State 17-6. They lost to Boise State 49-30. Then they won their last 2 games against New Mexico 28-0 and at Utah State on December 3rd, 35-7. Okay. Steve Chaloult, what do you think about the Air Force Falcons?
Well, I will tell you, that's a dangerous question. This is a family show. So if you ask me what I think about them, I truly dislike Navy, but I hate Air Force. and it's for a number of different reasons, and it's holding true to today. I'm not a huge fan of their coach and his tactics and his antics and other things. And over a cold adult beverage one day, I'll get deeper into it, and I can't do it today. But this has all the makings of a trap game for us. We are coming off a high. All of our energy peaked. We got done with final exams. The core is gone. We had an emotional win, and we could exhale. And if we exhale and get behind early, we could get ourselves into trouble. It is going to take a monumental task for us to get our minds right, to get up and get ready for this. It's going to be a colder game. It's going to hurt when you hit. It's going to be a different type mentality. You can hear it's going to be a scrimmage type situation in the stands, not a soul in the stands. And it has a makings of a letdown situation for us. So we will truly see coach's ability to get the team to rise up and get excited and get in the right mindset this quickly to beat this team. Now, if there's any team you can rally around to beat, is Air Force, but it has all the makings of a dangerous situation that we got to watch out for.
Conrad, what you're shaking, you're nodding.
I agree. I viscerally hate Air Force, and there's a lot of reasons for it as well. And I think, Coach Calhoun has maneuvered this game as best he could. I mean, rumors are they didn't play us the first time because he had 7 players out with COVID, which, like Coach Monken said, you got plenty of guys on the roster to play. He has maneuvered us where the core is gone. His team is rested. They're going to be healthy. But I just, you're not, I'll say, to echo kind of Steve's comment, you're not going to see Coach Calhoun and Coach Monken hugging themselves before this game, the way that you saw Numalolo and Monken. I agree that if there's any team you can get up against, it's Air Force. They are tough. We're not going to have the same edges we had against Navy. They've established the fullback. They've got the full range of offense. It's going to be, but again, I think there is a real edge between Army and Air Force. This is, like I've said before, this is not Army Navy. This is more like Eagles Cowboys. I mean, there's really a lot of this is not a typical Service Academy rivalry, and I think that there's going to be an edge out there on Saturday that will be evident.
Okay, Greg Mogavero, what do you think?
I'll jump on that one too. I mean, it's I think when we play Navy, there's a mutual respect, like between opposing warriors. I mean, it's more like a warrior spirit, that's kind of common among both teams. And when they come together, I mean, it's visceral, it's deep, and there's respect in that. Whereas Air Force, it really does kind of feel like, they want to be part of that kind of a feeling, that kind of a vibe, but they never have been. They're important win, but the intensity is different. Now, talking about the intensity that we had at the end of that game, I mean, we saw even on the field that I thought the teams were gonna, there's gonna be like a grudge match right there on the field. There was a lot of intensity, and so, to Steve's point, that's a tall task for coach. I mean, you can't maintain that level of intensity for a whole week. I mean, so it had to be an art how they did it this week, how they managed that, because they had to let those guys come down, in order to get back up, for this game, in order to even come close to the level of intensity I just saw last week. And so I'm really going to be looking forward to that. And and then obviously the pace of play and the style of football is going to be a little bit different. Watching how Air Force played against Navy, is a lot quicker hitting, and so and big fat boys up front too. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that intensity. I know that their heart will be in it. I know that they're that they're going to want to go in there and crush these guys just as bad as we do. But intensity, that 4 quarters of intensity, to me that's going to be a big part of this test, especially against a rested Air Force. So
Yeah, Jack, what do you think?
It's going to be, again, these two schools really don't like each other. There was a questionable move, I remember earlier in the season when it looked like Air Force might not have a season. They had a lot of players do turnbacks, hoping to play in the spring. But then the season eventually did begin. And I don't know if any of those players could reverse that decision, but they had the turnbacks, which were pretty questionable. I know Sam was really not a fan of the turnbacks. So it's going to be an intense game this weekend.
Sam, do you want to speak to that? Did you have any more insight into what Air Force did, some of their players dropping off for the semester in hope of getting another year added to their college eligibility?
I don't know the total number of players that were allowed to do this, but what infuriates just about anyone who is familiar even in the slightest with any of the military academies is the fact that they were able to do that. I mean, the Zoomies, the cadets at Air Force Academy, they don't go to the Air Force Academy to play football. They go to the Air Force Academy to hopefully one day be commissioned as officers in the United States Air Force. That's their mission. Their mission is not suiting up and playing football, and the fact that they think they're going to lose a year of eligibility because of COVID-19 should not be an excuse to allow them to turn back. What I heard was like 30 players on their team. So sure, that infuriates me. And I'm sure it infuriates a lot of people on this panel that they were allowed to get away with it. That's why I was so adamant about the rescheduling of this game, that if it was after the new year, that the turnbacks not be allowed to suit up. It was 2020 roster versus 2020 roster. So that being said, I am glad that the game did get rescheduled. I am glad that the Commander-in-Chief Trophy integrity will be maintained because all 3 of the service academies will have played in the round robin. I do agree with the comments on this forum in that there is a significant amount of animosity for Air Force. They always bring some kind of a sense of entitlement about how they deserve to be the ones who get the Commander-in-Chief Trophy, and they're very arrogant about it. Even the grooming standards, and I'm not making this up, when you see their players, they don't even look like they could meet, AR 370-1 standards with the way they present themselves. And that just adds to the fact that they're like the prodigal son returning, only they're not welcome. And so this game is going to be intense. Monken and Calhoun absolutely do despise each other. And if you want to humor yourself sometime, go to some of the Air Force Academy football forums and read the comments that they make about Army. Believe me, the hate is mutual. Now, all that being said, this game is very different than the Navy game. Air Force is a better team. They got better players, and they're playing better this year. They have had the same quarterback all year. Their quarterback has played pretty well. And they got Remsburg back. I can't stand that guy. He shredded Army last year. He's back. He's healthy. I'm sure he's hungry because Air Force did not win the Commander-in-Chief Trophy last year either. If you recall, Malcolm Perry fueled a comeback when they played Navy and drove Navy down the field to score a winning touchdown. And so they have a bad taste in their mouth about what they believe is rightfully theirs. The intensity is going to be the biggest concern. Can Army generate the same type of intensity that they did for Navy? And I'm telling you, that's a tough mission right there. They clearly were hyped out of their minds for the Navy game. And people who've never played just do not appreciate how much emotionally, physically, and mentally that takes out of you to get up for a game like that. And then to be able to do it on back-to-back weeks, it is tough. And we'll see from the first snap. The second thing is that Army's offense, and we can talk a little bit more about this on follow-on questions, so I don't want to go too much into it. I'm just going to say this. I believe that Army's defense can deliver the dominant victory 2 weeks in a row. I really do. They've been doing it all season. But I'm going to tell you straight up, if Army's offense does not figure out a way to control the line of scrimmage, to win the interior line, to get their B back in motion, and to set up the option, the trap, and the counter plays, and they put together a performance similar to what they did against Navy, 150 yards total offense is not going to get it done this Saturday.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's Coach Munkin has said that in past games where the rushing performance has been substandard. Okay, well, let's go around the room and take a score down from each of you. And a final thought, Conrad, you get first opportunity.
And like I said, I don't predict Service Academy games. I've learned a long ago. I don't even pick Army games. But I will say on this one, this game is going to be a war. My prediction is this is going to be a real war, and everybody should batten down the hatches for it.
I think it will be, and it's it's going to be so different than the atmosphere last Saturday when there was the Corps and the brigade there cheering, yelling at each other, high energy. I actually have to remember, I really liked that. I saw it more in the videos that when the Corps all held up the electric candles from the stands after it got dark in the second half. I thought
Those are cell phones. They're cell phones.
They use their cell phones for that? Okay.
Yeah.
They really looked.
Yeah.
Richard, what do you think for the score? We always worry about Richard because he's right more times than not.
More times than not, Army coming back after, as we've talked about, there could be a letdown from the game against Navy. I think in this one, I would have to be concerned about. I would have to be concerned about the next game after. I unfortunately think that this will be a little bit of a hangover. I'm gonna have to go. I think it'll be 2 touchdowns. I still think at the end though, Army comes out on top. Not as wide as wide as before. Maybe a little bit little bit closer. 27-24 Army by a field goal.
Okay, a Quinn Moretsky field goal. Okay, I sweated that one out that he was going to the other direction. Okay, Steve, Chaloult, why don't you try next?
2 things. Richard was about to be off my Christmas card list. And he was going the wrong way, and that was not going to be good for me. Number 2, Sam Houston throwing out Army regulations. Crazy. Crazy stuff. So I was the only one to predict safeties in the game, and we did get one of those. This week, we're going to have a barn burner again. We're looking at 17-16 Army in a dogfight.
17-16, a 1-point win. Okay. Jack, you're up next.
Well, my prediction is very close to the last we just heard from Steve. I was going to say 17-14 Army in this game. It's going to be an intense, emotional game. After at the end of the Army-Navy game, there was some pushing and shoving among the players. We might see more of that with these 2 teams coming up this weekend. And we also, depending on, because of all the snow and the condition of the field, we might see some, slipping and sliding on the field. But I think 17-14 Army is my prediction.
Okay. And Greg Mogavero, I'm sorry.
So I'm gonna. That's actually where I was going on this one too, is 17-14. But I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be on the upper end. It might be. Yeah, I have to go with the same thing, 17-14. I just I really don't. I don't see us lighting up the scoreboard, and I think that it's really about defense. Defense shutting them down. I mean, they ran the scoreboard up on Navy. So we know that they're capable, so I think that if we have a good offensive game, 17 points is probably smoking for us. And so, it's really going to be about shutting them down. I'm hanging my hat on Woody again. So Woody's got to come through for it.
And Sam Houston, what are you thinking is going to happen when the Air Force Academy arrives at Mikey Stadium on Saturday?
One thing I hope that Coach Monken is doing is he's showing over and over to the team the cheap shot that was put on Jabari Laws in the last Army drive last year that put him out of the game. That was typical dirty Air Force play. And then another thing that he can be showing for bulletin board material is he can be showing Air Force's reaction to losing at Mikey Stadium in 2018, where rather than shaking hands, they wanted to start throwing punches. So that's Air Force for you. So yeah, we hate Air Force. We don't like Navy, but we respect Navy. We hate Air Force. That being said, that'll help get the intensity up. I agree with the comments everyone's made. This is going to be an absolute dogfight. It might be one of the hardest hitting, most intense Army Air Force games we've ever witnessed. I think Army is going to be successful in the red zone 3 times. 3 times are going to lead to 3 touchdowns and extra points. Army's going to score 21. That last touchdown is going to come on their last possession. It's going to give them the lead and the victory, 21-17. Go Army, beat Air Force.
Okay, I have, you brought up the Jabari Laws play last year. I was out there and I walked down, I was behind the end zone for the last Army drive, and Jabari Laws made a 2nd or 3rd down and long run that was just remarkable when it looked like the game might be over right at that point. And then he did about a 25-yard run down the field and had Air Force on their heels. And but then, as you said, he took that hit, and Kelvin Hopkins went in playing on a bad leg, and he just couldn't connect on what might have been a touchdown opportunity. I think I'm going to go a little different. I'm going to say 20-14. I think Quinn Moretsky has shown that he really is a reliable field goal kicker for Army at the 37-yard field goal in the first half, and then one in the 4th quarter. And I think he's gives Army a good asset.
Let me throw a statistic, another statistic
Conrad.
out there. It's interesting that Steve talked about the red zone. Army, Air Force and Army are, I think, Air Force is 3rd and Army is 4th in red zone defense. So I mean, with both teams, it's going to be important. This game will be decided when those teams get in the red zone by the ones who can make it turn that into touchdowns. I mean, that's because both teams have been very good at keeping people out of the end zone.
Okay, well, that just about wraps it up for this week. Army will host the Air Force Academy at 3 o'clock on Saturday at Mikey Stadium after we get through with the snowstorm. And it will be available to watch on the CBS Sports Network. So it should be good. Let's thank our team for joining us today. And starting with Conrad Crane, class of 74, the U.S. Military Academy out of Carlisle Barracks, Pennsylvania area. Steve Chaloult, class of 92. Did I get it right? Okay. Former Army offensive lineman. And we've got Greg Mogavero, from also former West Point football player. Greg, what year did you graduate?
91.
91, okay. And Jack McGuirk calling in from Pelham, from our Sons of the American Legion WVOX team. Richard Miller, our executive producer of this show, calling in from Florida. And we're all, how warm is it out there, Richard, today in Florida?
Warm. I did not look up the.
I bet it starts with a 7, so that's good. Okay, and Sam Houston calling in from the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville, Alabama. Thank you, and really appreciate
74 degrees.
74. And what town do you live in Richard? What town do you live in Florida?
Oh, West Palm.
West Palm, okay, 74 degrees in West Palm, and it is about 33 here in White Plains, and it's going to get snowy by this time tomorrow. Yeah. And so anyway, thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll look forward to the game. I always like to close by thanking the 2 million veterans of the American Legion who we represent, and our 350,000 colleagues in the Sons of the American Legion serving America's veterans. So we'll look forward to Saturday. Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening.